Breath of the Wild is a pretty special game to me, and ever since Tears of the Kingdom released, I've been seeing a certain type of opinion floating around that's got me thinking about some things. It's usually something along the lines of, Tears of the Kingdom makes Breath of the Wild look like an unfinished tech demo. There's no reason to go back and play Breath of the Wild anymore. Or Tears of the Kingdom is just the objectively better game. Obviously, it's totally okay that people have their own opinions about these two experiences, and I have no ill will towards them at all, and honestly, I agree with them to a certain extent. Tears of the Kingdom improved on what Breath of the Wild built so much that it can feel like a massive upgrade in every possible way. But I think I just find it interesting that people view a game that's as important and impactful as Breath of the Wild as replaceable. Like now that we have the newer, updated model, we can simply discard the old, outdated one. This is kind of something that happens every time a new entry in a long-running series comes out, but it feels a little stronger than usual in this case. I've had a lot of time to sit with my opinions on Tears of the Kingdom, and my super positive initial impressions have turned into something a lot more complicated. The conclusion I've come to is that it's an incredible game that's trying to accomplish totally different things than Breath of the Wild. And I think that's a good thing. It would be boring if it was just the same thing over again. I'm going to be comparing these two games for a bit, but I'm not trying to show why Breath of the Wild is the better game, I'm just trying to highlight where it excels over Tears of the Kingdom in a few key areas. And using the sequel as a reference is my way of showing how Breath of the Wild stands on its own as a strong Zelda game. Tears of the Kingdom massively expanded the map, with sky islands high above the surface and an expansive underground in the depths below it. There are caves with new enemy types, more NPC interactions, and overall just a lot more content stuffed into every corner across Hyrule. So why do I sometimes feel like Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule seems a little smaller? I know that's a crazy thing to say, so let me try to explain before anyone gets too upset. First off, I think I feel this way because this isn't the first time I've explored this map. Right from the first moment I started playing Tears of the Kingdom, I knew the general layout of the surface of Hyrule, which made it feel less expansive and mysterious. There's a lot more vertical exploration with the sky and the depths, but to me it makes the surface feel less vast horizontally. Another reason is Ultra Hand and the new vehicle building system, which lets you travel across Hyrule faster and more efficiently than ever before. And while that's awesome and can be a lot of fun, it does make the world feel kind of skippable. Traveling around the map was a much more slow-paced and relaxing journey before you could simply build a hover bike and fly directly to your destination. There is the Master Cycle Zero, but that's extra DLC, okay, that doesn't count. It's also an endgame reward you get for completing all the main and extra content the game has, so you spend most of your playtime without it. And I also think all the empty space in Breath of the Wild actually made Hyrule feel bigger. Tears of the Kingdom has so much more to do and see that I get distracted and pulled away from my current goal every other minute. But I feel like I don't slow down and take in my surroundings quite as often since there's always something to do. I know it's crazy to say that I enjoy a game with less content and more empty space, but I'm just trying to highlight that Breath of the Wild has its own unique atmosphere that deserves to be remembered. And then there's the story, which I think was much more effective in the first game. Collecting Link's forgotten memories by visiting the places he made those memories in gives the narrative a reflective feeling, and it feels like a more personal journey for Link and Link alone. Everyone he's ever known is gone, and he's left to pick up the pieces. Tears of the Kingdom puts a greater focus on multiple different characters, which loses some of that isolated atmosphere. And Link's lack of emotion feels more out of place once you start making the story more complicated. The people in the world also seem more involved in the story as well, with them constantly bringing up the search for Princess Zelda or the Zonai, where in Breath of the Wild it felt like these people were entirely unconnected to the larger plot, and were simply trying their best to live their lives after the great tragedy of 100 years ago. Tears of the Kingdom's message about building up a community and working together is important and valuable, but it doesn't replace the story and message of the first game. Mipha, Revali, Daruk, Urbosa, these are some incredible characters that are super memorable. Tears of the Kingdom has ancestors that are literally nameless and faceless, and the new champions were still important parts of the original game too. Tears also has a general distaste for referencing stuff from Breath of the Wild, which ends up making the world feel kind of disjointed. Breath of the Wild's story was trying to do less than the more ambitious plotline of Tears of the Kingdom, but I feel like it ended up accomplishing more through its simplicity. The champion abilities are a good example of how Breath of the Wild's more simple gameplay actually feels better in practice. All of the abilities Link gets from the champions are natural parts of his moveset, where in Tears of the Kingdom they're AI companions that follow you around and need to be approached to be activated, which ends up feeling pretty clunky, so I always keep them turned off entirely. Or there's the arrows. In the first game there are 6 arrow types and that's it. Tears lets you fuse any item you have to an arrow, which is obviously way more options for creativity and fun combat moments. But I think I might prefer the simplicity of the original arrow system, since it has less clicking through menus, which makes it easier for me to get immersed in the world. I don't know if all these reasons make sense to anyone else, but I think they explain why Hyrule feels just a bit less grand and impressive for me personally. Alright, that's enough comparing the two games, as like I said, I think they're trying to accomplish totally different things. Tears of the Kingdom took the idea of totally unrestricted player freedom and went even further with it, but I think the drawback is that the exploration of Hyrule ends up feeling less immersive for me. My appreciation for Breath of the Wild's calm and quiet atmosphere has only grown over time. Maybe it's just because I'm in a busy phase of my life right now, but the many relaxing and peaceful moments I have while exploring are something I enjoy more than ever before. This huge map has a lot of locations that don't really have a purpose, which makes the gameplay loop feel slower paced and more chill. Of course there's still high energy moments like taking on a divine beast or battling a Lynel, but overall I think there are more calm moments than exciting ones. Many of my favorite gaming moments of all time are from exploring this map for the first time. Accidentally discovering Rito Village, seeing a dragon soar above Lake Hylia, or just simply stopping to enjoy a sunset over the ocean. This world felt so fresh, and it was just begging to be explored, but I never felt like I was in a rush. In fact, slowing down and really taking in the environment around me is what made exploration feel so special. Yes, there's a lot of empty space in Breath of the Wild, but there's also a whole lot of empty space in the real world as well. If the goal is to emulate nature and give the player the feeling of exploring off the beaten path, I think Breath of the Wild did a fantastic job. Now I'm not trying to say that Breath of the Wild is a perfect game, or even the best Zelda game, but I do think it manages to capture a special atmosphere that shouldn't be discarded. The E3 2016 trailer is the perfect example of what makes this game so special, and even its very first reveal has that perfect quiet ambience as well. Honestly, I still kind of want to explore this version of Hyrule right here. There's no doubt that Breath of the Wild has had a huge impact on the gaming industry overall, with so many games taking the open-air approach to their worlds. But I don't think any of them have managed to recapture exactly what made Breath of the Wild so great. Tears of the Kingdom comes the closest, but it's not an objective upgrade. Again, the fact that Tears of the Kingdom feels so different is a really good thing, and I'm not in any way saying that I wish it was more like Breath of the Wild. I feel like a lot of discussion around video games is where people talk about something they enjoyed from past games and hope it comes back in future games. But with something like Breath of the Wild, for me I think it's important to acknowledge that nothing will ever make me feel exactly the same way, and that's okay. Instead, I should hope for future Zelda games to make me feel emotions I wasn't expecting or hoping for, as that's what truly great art does. So I don't hope for a game that acts as a replacement to Breath of the Wild, but rather I hope for a game that can be just as impressive, but in totally different ways. Looking back, I went into Tears of the Kingdom wanting it to be a better Breath of the Wild, and I think that's a big reason why it felt somewhat disappointing for me personally. But it ended up giving me even more reasons to love the original, and I'm sure with time I'll learn to appreciate Tears of the Kingdom for its own greatness as well, as that's usually how these things go. I think the things I truly love about this era of Zelda games originate from and are done best in Breath of the Wild. The surface of Hyrule, the fragments of a story from long ago, and the terrific music that accompanies you. Of course, Tears of the Kingdom has its own unique atmosphere as well, with moments that wouldn't be possible in the first game. The player has more freedom and power than ever before, but I felt less motivation to engage with the game overall. I find it a lot easier to immerse myself in the Hyrule of Breath of the Wild, despite it having less content and options. But it's entirely possible that feeling is just the result of my nostalgia and a longing to go back to what my life was like in 2017. At the end of the day, this topic is like most others, where it comes down to personal preference and opinions. I happen to value atmosphere and immersion more highly than content and fast-paced gameplay, but I'm sure not everyone feels that way. Hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from with this, even if you don't agree. I could probably keep talking about this for a while longer, but that would kind of go against the vibes of what I'm trying to capture. I believe there is true beauty in simplicity, and learning to slow down and appreciate it can make life just a bit more enjoyable.